crushing the powerless and the mighty stomping on the weak. And because of this, there is a righteous anger rising up. And people are creating a pushback against corporate plutocrats and child molesters. People are standing up to political oligarchs and confronting religious hucksters and pulpit hustlers. Yes. These movements that are addressing abuse and a lack of accountability are rooted in a quintessential question raised over 40 years ago by the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. when he asked, where do we go from here? Do we go back to Jim Crow, back to separate and unequal, back to white supremacy and to the back of the bus? Or do we go to a future filled with racial equality, the elimination of discrimination, and the elevation of human dignity? Oh yes, these are the critical questions of our time. But these questions are not inherently unique to our time. You see, 2,000 years ago, in an occupied territory called Judea, people were grappling with these questions. You see, the Roman Empire had swept across Europe, North Africa, and the Mediterranean Sea. The Roman imperial military had conquered a vast amount of land and territory, dehumanizing and degrading people in the process. And in the midst of this scene steps this Judean brother of African descent. He disturbed the social order. He whipped people in the temple, overturning tables and driving folk out of his father's house. He stepped outside of social convention, touching the lepers and the outcasts. He saved a woman caught in adultery from death row and gave living water to another woman who had been married 5 times. Given his radical love for the underdog, one might expect that he would have been mad at the Roman Empire, which had made his people second-class citizens. But instead, he was mad at his own folk, who served as the religious leaders to his people. You might have heard of them, the so-called Sadducees and Pharisees. Yeah. And he was mad at them because they were supposed to be the people who should have been standing up for justice. Instead of bowing down for a little bit of power and privilege with their Caesar and their Roman masters, as we find in John 11 and 48. This man, you might know him, he was so strong, so powerful, that even his own disciples had to stop one day and ask, what kind of man is this? And even though they posed this question in relation to his miracle working power, one could easily imagine people asking this question about his confrontation with the religious authority. You see, in their own way, the sellout Sadducees and Pharisees were asking this very same question. What kind of man is this? Who does he think he is, calling us snakes and murderers, hypocrites and vipers? Who does he think he is, dogging us out for ducking down and selling out? Can't we just all get along and go along even though our people are being treated as second-class citizens?
Go ahead, man.
Well, I just want you to know that ain't too much change nearly 2,012 years later. Today we have sellout Sadducees and Pharisees in our own community.
Come on.
Even our own precious NAACP has been guilty. You might remember last year, don't you? When Fox News reported that Miss Shirley Sherrod was a racist. Well, the national NAACP threw Miss Shirley Sherrod under the bus. Only to find out later they had been hoodwinked by the media's selective editing. Only later did they realize that Miss Sherrod was a bona fide freedom fighter in the struggle for human rights. They did not get the full story. This year, the National Office has attempted to suspend our standard as a branch of the organization and throw out our election results from last year. Once again, they acted without getting the full story.
Yes.
I know you saw that Judge Victor Hill declared the election results to be upheld and our branch to be in good standing.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we have Sadducees and Pharisees in our own community. And even they are asking the question, what kind of man is this Shabaka Afrika?
Yeah.
What kind of man is this to stand up to authority?
Yeah.
Right here in Crittenden County just 2 years ago, we had a president of the branch who said on local TV, we need to work within our leaders and not question them. The same leaders whose officers had killed and murdered a 12-year-old boy. The same leaders whose police force had killed 6 people in the span of 6 years. The same police chief who called one of our council members a thug and a pimp, even though one of his own police officers had been locked up for doing the very same thing. Oh yeah, we have plutocratic preachers and pimped out politicians in our own community who receive money and power from our very own Pharaoh Keith Ingram and his money changers. So what kind of man is this Shabaka Afrika? This is a man who, like Christ, is angry with people who pursue surrogacy as opposed to advocacy. I want you to understand that, like Jesus, righteous folk do become angry when people choose Jim Crow over let my people go.
That's right.
Righteous people get tired when people accept the words of the evening crimes and sit on the sidelines while the battle for Crittenden County's soul is taking place. Instead of recognizing our president as prophet, we give in to a kind of weakness that can be our undoing if we let it. It's the same kind of weakness that made Peter deny Jesus before his crucifixion. But I'm reminded of the essential truth of Scripture in the Holy Bible where it says, greater love hath no man than this, that he lay down his life for his friend. Sacrifice. In other words, the God of our many years, the God of our silent fears, thou who hast seen us thus far on the way, teaches us to have righteous anger and radical love. Righteous anger allows you to see what's wrong in the world and oppose injustice. As Dr. King said, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. Radical love inspires you to wake up and stand up for the rights of your neighbors, or do as the supreme reggae master Bob Marley sang, most people think great God will come down from the sky, take away everything and make everybody feel high. If you know what life is worth, you will look for yours on earth. And now you see the light. Stand up for your right. Oh yeah, this same spiritual sentiment is reflected beautifully in the scripture of our Muslim brothers and sisters, where it reads in the Holy Quran, be just or do justice, for it is closest to God consciousness. And that's in Surah 5, verse 8. So instead of asking the question, what kind of man is this? We've got to ask the question, what kind of man or woman am I? When we ask that question, we realize that we're talking about the man in the mirror, or the woman in the mirror. And as men and women, we each have a divine responsibility and a sacred duty to create a better world and leave the world a better place than we found it. The only way we can do this is to organize as one and work together. We must commit ourselves, our time, our money, our energy to creating a better world for our children and the unborn. I'm here to let you know that we have an awesome opportunity to change the character of the future and the trajectory and the arc of history. We are in a critical moment where people all over the world are no longer afraid to stand up and be counted. Oh yeah, the voiceless are raising their voices. The hopeless are having their hopes renewed. The powerless are beginning to recognize that together we stand and divide.